Hi, I'm Jeana Locke, and I'm here to talk about the book, The Big Leap. This is going to be on chapter 3, and it's about how to spot the upper limit problems in our life. So we talked in chapter 1 about all of those different things that cause us to have those upper limits, which we know we hopefully have 100% of everything in life, but we don't. And there's something stopping us from getting there. So we have an upper limit, and something's not letting us get up here. So what these may be is our zones are there. If we're in our zone of genius, we're probably there. But if we're in incompetence, we're not. Competence is when we can do it, but it takes a lot of energy. Excellence is when we're doing it, but we aren't really at the exact spot we need to be. And genius is when it takes no effort on our part. There are barriers that prevent us. Those barriers are we feel flawed. We feel like we have this disloyal or abandonment thing. We feel like we're a burden on somebody if we do it, or we're outshining. And I talked about those before. Now we're going to talk about how to spot it. So number one on this is that this is an art. It's not a science. So when you learned how to drive a car, you figured out pretty quickly it was an art to learn how to drive a car. It wasn't a science. There were scientific things you needed to do and learn to do stuff, but to become easy and to become simple for you, it had to become something that became an art. You had to adapt and modify your own personal being to meet exactly how to look out of each mirror at the right time, the back rear view mirror, when to put those brakes on, how much to put those brakes on, and when to change what gear to put it in. All of those things, how far you turn to look to your rear, whatever it was, the mirrors, whatever may be there, it was an art and it was not a science. You could have a checklist, but it became an art to make it smoothless and seamless with ease. That's what this is about. It's how do we find what it is? So we're going to give you 8 different things to look at to say, are these going right in my life or wrong? And then as you detail those and you trigger in and you say, oh my gosh, that's a trigger for me. And that keeps me out. It keeps me out of having 100% of what I want. That's what I need to understand. And so helping you to do that. The first, and I want to explain that it's just like learning to walk. When a child learns to walk, a baby, they don't just get up and walk. They normally have to crawl and they do all these things and they learn how to use those muscles and put it together. And it becomes an art of how they do it. And I can tell you that I had an injury, something happened in my life when I was 30, and I ended up in a major back surgery, reconstructive, and they replaced the vertebrae on the lumbar section of my back. It's all bone chips and were donated. I had 2 years of my life spent out of commission, basically, from the fact of I was down for the surgery, and then the bone chips growing, and then learning how to do everything again. So when I was doing that, I can tell you that learning how to, once even the bone chips were growing and they were able to do it, I had to learn how to roll over to get up out of bed. I had to learn how to stand up, how to get up out of a chair. I had to learn how to walk with my legs. There was no way I could have ridden a bike or run. There was no way to walk up and down steps with ease. It was extremely difficult. All of those things took a whole new way of learning how to use the muscles to make them connect at the right time in the right place without me concentrating on it so hard to be able to do it. My concentration was huge through that time to learn how to take steps again until it became an art and it became simpler and easier. And now I look back upon it and recognize how far I've come and how much I've gone through and gotten to this point that I can ride a bike and I can run and I can swim and I can do all of those things. But for 2 years of my life, it took every mental part of me to be able to do any of it. To just move in the bed and roll over was impossible. And it took a lot to learn how to do that. So that's what this is about, is that these are not things that are natural. You would think it's natural to have 100% of what you want, but we're stuck somewhere. We're stuck someplace. And since we're stuck someplace, here's the places to look. The first one is called worry. And on worry, it's that you can't do anything about it, then you need to recognize it's an upper limit issue. It's an upper limit issue if you can't do anything about it. If all of a sudden you're doing something and you start worrying about is my child okay? And there's nothing you can do about it, and they're probably just fine at school, or they're probably just fine in their bed sleeping, but you've got to get up and go check every time. Are you going to worry about it forever? Those are things that you need to think about, that those are preventing you from getting your upper limit. And if they're not something you can control, why are you allowing yourself to worry and teaching yourself how not to do it. So today we're looking at all of the concepts, the 8 things that keep us out of those upper limits. We know what the barriers are and where they came from, but here's where these other sections are. So we're going to look at worry. What was worry? And if you're worrying, it's keeping you out. I'm not saying that you go, oh my God, I left the stove going and the house could burn down. That's not the kind of worrying I'm talking about. I'm talking about endless worrying. People who worry to death, people who worry about stuff they shouldn't have to worry about. And they're going to go on vacation and they worry about everything that can go wrong and they create it before it happens. Those are the worries that prevent you from going to your upper limit. The next one is criticism and blame. Criticism and blame is a big issue because a lot of people do this. They blame someone else for everything that's not going in their life. That's not right. If it's not right in my life, it's someone else's fault. If this isn't happening, it's somebody else's fault. Somebody else has to be responsible, and they don't even look at ways they can become responsible. If you've ever had a spouse who blamed you for every single thing that went wrong in their life or everything that happened, you know how this feels. It feels like there is a burden put on the other, and then the other one comes back at with another thing to say, that's not my fault, and defending themselves, and it becomes a battle. So anytime you have criticism and blame, you are not getting to your upper limit. You're not looking at what can I do to get there? What can I do to help this be a better relationship? What can I do to look at how we use money differently? You can't change anybody else's vibe, but you can change your own. When you're doing criticism and blame, you are number one in the spotlight for creating part of the problem. And you want to stop doing that. The next one is called deflection. And deflection is a big one because it was pretty much my biggest one when I started doing this life coaching stuff. You know, when somebody told me I was a good teacher, I'd smile and just sort of go, thank you, and go on, and that was all right. And I never really accepted exactly how talented I was at it, and how talented I was at building a program, how talented I was at seeing obstacles before they ever hit, the potentials of what were coming up. So for me, deflection was a huge issue. When I became a coach and somebody said, you just transformed my life. Everything in my life just changed. You just handled that so well, and you showed me new ways to do it. And it was really hard for me just to say thank you and feel it and go with the joy of it, because I would always think about all the things I could have done to make it better and all the stuff that could have happened. And it took me a while to stop and to start saying to myself, embrace the thank you and not deflect it to someone else. Don't say, oh yeah, that was it. And I can acknowledge that, hey, there was like, I did learn all these different modalities. I went and got a degree in teaching. I have a degree in how to do all of this stuff on hands-on learning. I have all of my certifications for counseling in PK-12, career counseling. I have all of those pieces of paper. I have a PhD. Oh yeah, I can hand that. But deflection was when I never recognized that I put all those dots together to make somebody's world perfect, to make somebody's world come and be transformed so they could start learning how to do it themselves. Deflection's big. Number 4, squabbling and arguments. When somebody starts an argument with you, it is their issue that they're staring at. They may not like what you're doing, and they may not think about it, but they are the ones who has the problem. And when you start squabbling and arguing, you have an upper limit problem. When you start it, or you even engage in it, you have an upper limit problem. And you want to stop and look at that upper limit problem and say, what am I contributing in this to cause this? What can I do differently to have it not happen? This one's sort of interesting. Number 5 is getting sick or hurt. Have you ever known someone every time they got ready to go for a job interview, they got sick? That happened. One of my clients calls and she has a great job interview for a wonderful deal for a consulting gig. And she has laryngitis hit on Friday night through Sunday night. And she's like texting, and we ended up working and ended up working to get it gone. But what happened on it was she had an upper limit problem because she knew darn well. She got in there. She didn't just get the consulting gig. They upped it and increased it, almost doubled it. What happens with that? It's because she had an upper limit and that she either got sick or got hurt when she got to certain points. This happens to a lot of people. And we're going to talk about it as we look at this next one, because it combines with the 3 Ps of punishment, of prevention, and protection. We go into these little places of, oh, I don't want to go to this high place. Don't want to go there. Don't want to go there. So I am going to do a punishment to myself, which means I'm going to do something to keep myself from doing that. Or I'm going to do a prevention so I don't have to do it. Or I'm going to protect myself so I don't have to go to that upper limit. I don't have to do that. I won't. So I had my friend of mine that I know well, and he was married to a person, And this person got sick. And every time they get ready to go do one of his family functions, she'd get sick. And she wouldn't just get sick when they get there. She would get so sick that the whole household, all of the cousins that had come and all the people that had driven for hours to get there would be pulled into her drama of, I am so sick, and oh, it's too much noise in the house, and over whatever it may be. And she was Miss Unbelievably God drama queen. And unenjoyable is only the way I know how to describe it. And it became where the family was like, we have to invite him, but maybe she won't come. But he wouldn't go without her. And she always had to come and had to leave immediately and get home. And then she would end up in the hospital because they had done something for him. He ended up spending 20 plus years in this marriage of doing every single thing, that every time something got an upper limit where she had to step out and let him have some time or attention, or for her to even like have to be something besides sick, she lived on being sick. She thrived on everybody giving her attention for being sick. It was her whole thing in life, was to be sick. She did the 3 Ps, and she used getting sick and getting hurt to make sure she stayed at the spotlight of attention, but she never had to get to her upper limit. And she didn't. When he finally let go and said, I'm not going to do this anymore, she even every night before the divorce hearings for 2 years, every time they'd be scheduled for 2 years, she would end up in the hospital and they couldn't have it. Till finally the judge said, we're doing it anyway. It's over. He's done enough. She's going to go in the hospital every time and never show up. And a judge recognized the 3 Ps and that other part. The next one is called an integrity breach. And the integrity breach is when we've done something and it's outside our integrity. We did something and we did not think it was kosher. We didn't think it was right, and our bodies are saying, oh my God, what did I just do? And it's integrity breach. And then integrity breach is when somebody's getting ready to do something and they screw it up with an integrity breach. So it's the couple that's getting married, and one of them goes and has a one-night stand right before the wedding. What? They love each other. They want to get married. They planned it. They have a big wedding plan, and one of them goes and messes it up because they have an integrity breach. They cannot actually ever let themselves finish up those upper limits and get to 100% happy. They just can't do it. So they mess up with integrity breaches. Somebody gets a new job and it's the job they always wanted and they go screw it up. Somebody has something happen, or they can't have their marriage in the job, or they can't have the children in the job, whatever it may be. So the thing about integrity is the wholeness of who you are. It's the wholeness of every part of you. And if you mess up the integrity of one of those pieces, that's when this happens. So it happens when you can say, do I feel out of integrity with myself? Because it's pretty common. This one's a big one. Do I feel out of integrity? Am I staying in a job that I wouldn't want my children to stay in? Am I doing something that I would not want my wife to do? Am I acting out of a thing? Where do I feel out of integrity with myself? Where am I keeping myself from feeling complete and whole? What important feelings am I not letting into my awareness? Where am I letting my life not tell me the truth? Where in my life have I not kept my promises? And sometimes it's time to go back and say, I'm sorry. And where in my relationships with whoever do I need to say or do to feel whole and complete? So this whole one on the breach of integrity is, you'll see this often, and people will start having the illness or the 3 Ps, and they'll have those other things show up because all at once they're out of integrity, and it's a breach of integrity. And the last one is our attitude. It's our attitude. Gosh, our attitude really does determine our altitude. So if we have an attitude that we can't, we won't, it's not. If we have that attitude and it's really there, you're out. You just feel like, can't do it. And you're too scared to even try to get rid of those upper limits. You're too afraid to even go there. You're worrying yourself. You're doing these other 7 things. Your attitude is preventing you from getting to 100% of who you are. So here again, this whole concept of being able to live and get to your upper limits is an art. It's not a science. And you're going to have to look at yourself and identify them. Maybe you make a checklist and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you do a little thing and you just put on there little tiny notes and write it, and then ask each step, am I living this? Am I able to do that? Because you know something? We all want to go right there. All of us. That's me, that little purple orb. I want to go there. I want to be 100% of what I can be. I want to contribute back to society 100% of what I contribute. I don't want to hold back anything. I want it to be a part of what I contribute and who I am. And it's important to me to live in integrity and to be a part of that. So that's chapter 3. It's long, it's not boring, and it really will hit the nail on the head. And sometimes when you stop and look at it, one of those barriers you talked about is keeping you in those different things. So as you look at the barriers and you combine it, it helps you understand. And we will go on to chapter 4, which is short.